But there are a lot of people who get so far in their renovation or their decorating project and they realize now I've made a bunch of mistakes. Then they call in the color expert or the decorator hoping that the paint color can magically fix it. Sometimes it can. There's no magic here. You now have to start ripping something out in order to
Yeah.
to get the result that you want.
Home, home, just wanna go home, back home. I've been going for way too home, home. Welcome to Make Space, a home design show that empowers you to create spaces you're obsessed with. Tune in for conversations that dive deeper than pin-worthy rooms. Host Cara Newhart teases out the essentials of designing spaces that feed your soul and inspire your creativity. Cara has been featured in House Beautiful, Apartment Therapy, and has collaborated with brands like Home Depot, Wayfair, Amazon, and more. Here's your host, Cara Newhart. It's Cara, and I'm on a mission to help you find your style, learn to tackle home design without intimidation, and unlock the confidence to transform your home. On the show today, we're covering everything you need to know about the undertones of your neutral paint colors, as well as some strategies for picking shades. I am sitting down today with Maria Killam, who is an internationally sought-after color expert. She's been featured places like HGTV, The Washington Post, House Beautiful, and many, many more. And she's sitting down with me today to talk about color undertones to help you better understand neutrals. We also dive into picking paint colors and some different strategies for choosing colors that not only fit in your space, but help to bring the entire space together. She has so many good tips, such good insight, and I'm seriously so excited for you guys to be able to get access to her through this interview because I think some of the stuff she has to share is going to change your paint color game. If you're new to the show, here's what we do. I break down some specific design strategies you can use in your space. Then we sit down with an incredible guest for pro tips, a deep conversation about home, and mind-blowing design advice. Next, I'll tell you what I'm obsessed with for the week, and then we'll talk about a trend that you might want to try out in your space and some tips for how to do it. For this week's design strategies, I am giving you my 4 biggest paint tips. I used to get so excited to paint accent walls. I would go grab a color right off the paint wall, mix it up, barely sample on my wall, and just paint because after all, you can undo it later, right? Yes, but with a little bit of strategy, your space or accent wall will have the perfect color. So tip number 1 is all about creating paint palettes. So matching colors together can be really challenging if you don't have a background in art or design, or you don't really understand color theory. It can be challenging to figure out what color really goes with what. It is based a lot off of undertones, based off of how the colors were mixed and muted. Did they add white to create a tint, black to create a shade, or a little bit of that color's complementary color to create a muted hue? Is that already sounding confusing? I thought so. So the best tip to create a professional looking color palette is to steal it from a professional. Now here's what I mean. Go snag a piece that has a pattern or a color palette you really like. This could be a pillow, a rug, a throw blanket, a piece of art. There's an artist or a designer behind that piece that has taken time to intentionally mix up those colors, who knows a hell of a lot more about color than you probably do, unless you're also a professional. So what you're going to do is paint match to this piece. You're going to just pull colors straight out of this piece that someone has already put together for you. This is the easiest way to get a color palette that matches. So when you do this, there's a few things you need to do to get it right. Number 1, I paint match in the room I'm going to be painting. That ensures that I have the same light level, which is really important for color, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And number 2, pay attention to the structure of the piece. Is there a shade that takes up most of the space? Like, is there a light blue dominating the background with some smaller amounts of accent colors? Looking out for the proportion of colors in the piece is going to maybe tell you maybe that blue should be your wall color. And then all the little navies and the corals and the accent colors of the flowers should be colors of the pillows and the throws and the things that you're putting in the space. Does that make sense? It is a magical hack and it will change your paint game. Number 2, and Maria talks about this in the interview as well because it's that important, but that is to use big samples. If you're going to the paint wall and you're pulling those tiny little index card size paint samples and taping them up and trying to choose from that, you are just making it so hard on yourself. Okay, they do that because there's so many colors and it needs to be cheap and free and easy for you to get them. But what you need to do is grab a paint sample of the 3 to 4 colors that you like, grab some foam boards, like from the dollar store or Target, and then paint the samples onto the giant foam boards, like 2 feet by 3 feet, whatever size those are, and then tape those up. This huge sample is going to make it so much easier for your brain, and you're going to be able to visually see the color in the space a lot better. And you can set it behind things like different existing furniture and different art pieces to see if it truly matches. So forget the dinky samples. You are going to paint like a pro and use large samples. Okay, number 3. You're going to go to the paint wall and you are going to skip every single color that looks bright and vibrant. And the reason why is when you want color in your space, let's say you want red. You're going to go to the paint wall. You're going to pick that bright red, just like you were choosing a Crayola crayon out of your box in elementary school, because that's red, right? Well, it turns out those bright colors tend to look very playful and kind of like a kindergarten classroom when you get them in your space. If you go down to the more muted, almost grayish looking colors, they look super gray on the paint wall. Like they look like they're not as bright and vibrant when you compare like a more muted red with that true red. But I promise you, once you get the color in your space, it is going to be so much brighter than you think. So I did this recently. I painted a mountain accent wall for Ella, which, spoiler alert, is not on my Instagram yet. You are the first to know that this is a project. But I pulled all these purple hues that were very gray looking. They looked kind of washed out, kind of boring. But once we got them into the space, it is so bright, so vibrant, and very, very purple. So go less saturated than you think and avoid those true hues. And finally, and possibly the most important tip, is that light temperature absolutely changes your paint color drastically. So the best example I can think of is in my mother-in-law's house. She has this gorgeous blue color. She loves to paint the walls. So she painted the walls and the ceiling, which is kind of a vaulted ceiling with 2 skylights. Well, during the day, when those skylights are on, the ceiling looks straight gray. Like, it is really wild, but the ceiling does not look the same color at all as the walls, even though it is. So that's just a good lesson that light really affects the way our eyes perceive color. So you can harness this power in your space, and that means paying attention to the hue or the temperature of light bulbs you have. If you're doing those more like bluish, like daylight bulbs versus the soft white, warmer bulbs, that's going to skew your paint color. Also, natural light. If you have big windows, that's going to affect it versus being in a room that is lit by just light fixtures. Light at eye level versus light coming from the ceiling. So those are all things to consider. And the way you want to work with this is just by matching color in the space that you are going to use it in and doing it at different points of the day so you can see the light level. So paint your big sample, stick it in that room, and kind of like live with it for a couple days and check on it in different light temperatures. Does it look super weird at night and kind of have like a greenish cast because of your lights? Or does it look weird during the day with daylight? And so just kind of visually looking at that in different light levels is going to help you pick your color. I think a lot of times people throw samples up, they look at them once in a specific like time of day, and then they decide, when really you need to kind of live with it throughout the day, throughout different light levels, and that is how you will magically pick the perfect color. Okay, now we're going to dive into this interview and hear from Maria all about picking paint and understanding undertones in your space. She is the queen of this. Like, literally, if I go to my Benjamin Moore paint store, there is a binder in the store that says Maria Killam's Perfect Whites. And you might have one in your store too. So you're going to have to keep an eye out and tell me if you do. But let's dive into this interview with Maria. Okay, so as a color lover, I am just so impressed with your work and your talent for breaking down a topic that can be very intimidating, I think, for many everyday women and even designers. So I'm so honored that you're joining us today, and I can't wait to unpack some color strategy and design strategy for our listeners.
That's awesome. I'm so thrilled to be here.
Yes, thank you. So, just to get started, can you share a little bit maybe about your background and how you became a color expert?
Well, I was in corporate in my 20s and when I hit my early 30s, I decided I had
Yeah.
to be creative or die. So, I had been doing redesign, which is what we called it back then, for my friends and family for years. And I
Right.
decided to start my own, one day design kind of redesign business. And so I
Yeah.
put an ad in the yellow pages because that's what we did back then. And the ad said, "We use what you have to create affordable, incredible interiors." And then at the bottom, I wrote expert color consultation. Well, the
Mhm.
ad worked. And one day I received this call from this woman, and she said, "I'm trying to pick a beige for my living room, and I'm looking at all these beiges, and I see that some have pink undertones and some have green undertones. Can you help me with that?"
Yeah.
And I said, "Absolutely." And I had no
Yeah.
idea what she was talking about. So I decided I better figure this out. So I found a 5-day color course in San Francisco, and I flew down and did that course and fell madly in love with color. And when I came home, I
Yeah.
decided I was going to be an internationally known color consultant. And I literally wrote it on a sticky note and stuck it up on my mirror. And
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. I love that so, so much.
so then I kind of suffered, not really suffered, but I put in my time.
Yeah.
I worked in a paint store. I
Right.
mixed paint colors. I talked to people about paint, about their colors when they'd come in. And then I did lots of color consultations, and I started using big samples because that's one of the things that I learned in my course was that she
Mm,
would paint up a large, like 5 foot by 5 foot sample for everyone. Well, obviously I couldn't
right.
do that. So I started painting up smaller sample boards, and that's how I discovered the world of undertones and beiges because I was never happy with just kind of walking into a house and giving everyone a go-to color. I really wanted to understand like what the right color was, and I wasn't satisfied until I could walk into any house and know exactly what the color should be. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. So, because we talk a lot about on this show about how to use color bravely and intentionally in your space, but I think that that usually results in people heading straight to like the color section of the paint wall to explore these different hues. But you have this concept of like the 80-20 rule when it comes to paint colors. Can you kind of break that down a little and give us some insight?
What I teach people, it's kind of, I'm definitely the neutral in terms of being able to choose the right neutral queen, but I also believe that,
Right.
color is way more timeless than the current trendy neutral, which is why my house is colorful, which is why I have a sunflower
Yeah.
yellow sofa, because you would not be able to nail down when the sofa arrived in my house. But a brown
Sure,
sofa from
sure.
the brown trend, right now that sofa would look 20 years like it was 20 years old sitting in your house. Like there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But it's about
Right.
when people choose the same trendy neutral over and over again. I mean, brown's coming back. I mean, I just had a friend the other day send me a beautiful brown sofa from Restoration Hardware that she's thinking about buying. And so it's
Yeah.
back in terms of like it's in small doses, just like all the other colors are.
Mm.
And now, of course, black and white is here. And then when the gray trend was here, everyone bought a gray sofa. But then they also bought gray everything else. They painted their kitchens gray. They paint, that every single choice that people make inside of a trend tends to be the same thing over and over. And then that's why when you walk into your house with charcoal, hardwood floors and gray sofa and gray tile, now you're starting to feel like now you're in a trend. So I really believe that, a white kitchen is totally timeless because you can change up the colors whenever you want. I believe that accent tiles should be used extremely sparingly if you're going to use it at
Yeah,
all.
absolutely, yes.
And really, my favorite story that I tell truly is in my live workshops is when the Ritz in Paris did their $400 million renovation a few years ago. There's nothing neutral about that hotel. I mean, it is like
Uh-huh.
there's the pink room that Vogue loves so much. They did a spread in it. Then there's the turquoise and red room. And then there's the blue and white lobby. And I mean, it's like,
Yeah,
when will
yeah.
that hotel need to be renovated? When everything is threadbare. right? But then you go into any
Right.
other hotel
Right.
and you know exactly, oh, this is a brown hotel. This is a gray hotel. I mean, you can pin
Yeah.
down when it was within the last 5 years when it was decorated.
Absolutely. So it's not necessarily that color isn't the place to start, like the bright hues, it's just that you have to give thought to like the neutrals you're pairing with them,
Yeah, I
and
mean,
there has to be more on that side.
so many people think that color is the first, like paint color is the first place to start. It doesn't really matter. People think that,
Mhm.
if I just nail down the color, well, then, it'll all come together. And usually picking your favorite color to paint your house, that's just not the place to start because the paint stores, that's the advice you get, right? They're like, oh, colors,
Absolutely.
like, are you drawn to? Like, what colors make you happy? But if you move into a Tuscan house, for example, and you try to stick white in that Tuscan house, it's not going to work
Mhm.
if you're not doing any renovations. Or try to put in like some really bright colors because that's the trend now as well.
Yeah.
So people have to understand that you have to look at your fixed elements, like the things that are already existing in your house. That's the first place to look
Mhm.
on what your
Yeah.
sort of main neutral is going to be because that's what everyone's looking for, for the most part. And then your colors can be more like in your powder room or your office or your bedrooms, like that. But
Yeah.
usually now, I mean, the trend is white, but
Mhm.
white or beige or cream or something really, really pale. So, I mean, I think that we couldn't go back to beige quite yet because it did beige
Mhm.
during the brown trend, right? So I think
Right, right.
white feels the freshest, which is why that's what everybody wants right now. And I just, it's funny because somebody had just posted on a Facebook page, oh, both my neighbors beside me have a white house, but I wanted a white house too. What can I do to make it different?
Right, right.
I've never seen a trend be so like you drive through these white neighborhoods now. I mean,
Uh-huh.
everywhere.
Yes, we have one, like, down the road from us.
Yeah,
Every house is
that's
white,
right.
black and
Yeah.
white. But I think that's all really important to unpack for the listeners that, like, picking one color isn't necessarily the starting point. There's so much more that you have to build off of and look at first. And I know one of the core parts of what you do is to help people understand undertones in addition to your design work. But in terms of the everyday girl who's going to the paint store for neutrals, she's feeling overwhelmed by all these, like, very subtly different shades. Can you talk to us about undertones in terms of like a very basic understanding of them? I know you have like an entire color wheel, which we can talk about as well, but just kind of like
Well,
101.
right now, most people are looking at the palest of shades. And so, a distinction that I've just added to my White is Complicated ebook is a conversation
Yeah.
about complex creams because if you don't have like a newly renovated home or you're not dealing with a new build, brand new house, and
Mhm.
your house probably can't pull off like an art gallery white, so that you need
Right.
to be looking at the three palest of beiges. And in my system, the beiges are pink beige, yellow beige, green beige, and then there's orange beige, and then there's gold beige. So really there's five beiges, but the three that I just mentioned are the most
Right.
sort of the most popular. But so you're basically looking at the palest of all those colors. But what makes my system so great is that once you understand the reason why my color boards, I only have, I have 50 color boards in my core Benjamin Moore collection or my Sherwin-Williams foundation, is that once you have those 50 colors, and they're also found in my ebooks as well, you can actually narrow down your neutrals from my curated list. Like, you're going to find the
Right.
right neutral from that list. So you don't need the
Yeah.
thousands and thousands of colors or whites that people are looking at. You can
Absolutely.
just
Yeah.
narrow it down from my curated list. And that just makes it a lot easier. So if you are dealing with
Yeah.
sort of a house that was built still like in the 90s, in the Tuscan trend, and you haven't renovated, art gallery white is not the right color for your house. You probably need something more in the realm of a
Absolutely.
cream. But I think that the pitfall of the black and white trend right now is that I think a lot of people think, it's white. I mean, how hard can that be? But then we get emails where people say, oh, my white went green, or oh, like I like it in this room,
Mm.
but I don't like it in this room. Well, probably that because most people don't have like stark white furniture either, right? So if you paint your,
Right.
your walls like a stark white and you don't have any white in your house, well, then it looks wrong. Now, you're not going to be as offended by the wrong white as you are by the wrong
Mhm.
beige or the wrong gray.
Mhm.
So
Right.
that's the good thing, I guess, is that, it's not going to make you run to the paint store as fast as you would had you put up the wrong gray. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love this because I think with DIY design, it's important to have like a frame of reference and some sort of like system that you can lean on because then you're not designing in a void. You're not making the wrong choice multiple times before you finally get it
Yeah.
right. And I know that part of that not designing in a void is, yeah, what you've talked about, like looking at some of the existing features of your
Yeah.
house. And something that I think you talk about on your blog is how like undertones obviously don't apply just to paint, but different elements in your space have different undertones. And so when those conflict, things can start to look mismatched or not cohesive. What are some of the things in our rooms that we should look for and like identify the undertones of in order to kind of match up, what we're painting the wall?
Like most people aren't dealing with like a complete blank slate in their home.
Mm,
So the place
yeah.
to look in your kitchen would be like, what color is your tile and what color is your countertop and what color is your backsplash, to try to find common, undertone that you can choose that will pull it all together and make it work. I mean, I've even in
Right.
dated bathrooms, I mean, I have made many a dated bathroom look amazing just by picking the cabinet color that relates to the countertop and the wall color that relates to the tile. Bathroom that somebody was just like hated and wanted to immediately rip out but couldn't afford to. Suddenly, by choosing the right colors, you're like, oh, I can live with this,
Mhm.
right? A little
Yeah,
styling, a little,
absolutely.
some lamps.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So your color wheel, like if the DIY designer, obviously you have like a whole system attached to it, but this is something you're using throughout the space and like you're actually putting it on things to see like room.
Absolutely, if you want to nail down the
Yeah.
right neutral. Now, the thing that I should mention is that the printing
Mhm.
process is never 100% accurate. I mean, in actual fact,
Right.
every paint chip that you're looking at from the paint store or fan deck has actually been painted. It's not a printed
Yeah.
chip.
Okay.
So because my color wheel is printed, I have a list of 3 paint companies. So what I recommend is that you get those color chips and that you glue them down onto the color wheel when it arrives, and then you can move it around and actually distinguish like what's the undertone of my tile, and so that you can figure out what the right neutral is.
I guess I didn't realize that painting would have that much variance, but there's definitely a difference. So that's a really, really interesting fact for
Yeah.
people when it comes to
Hmm.
matching. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, when it comes to all these different undertones, are we trying to match and coordinate everything, or
Yes.
is there situations where we're intentionally like contrasting
Yeah, no, I mean, not
at all?
generally. Usually with
Okay,
neutrals, you want your wall color to pull your space together. So you're looking for what are the neutrals in the room that are going to relate to my paint color. I mean, you're
absolutely.
creating continuity, and so it's different from like, oh, I have like a purple sofa, what kind of accent color am I going to put in here? So
Right.
but when you're choosing a neutral, you're looking at your carpet and what color is my drapery and my sofa and my tile, and you're looking at all those
Mhm.
elements already. So that's the first place to look, and those are the best clues.
I obviously love to DIY, but I think there's something to be said for really knowing your limits and knowing when to call in a professional. But not only that, I think design decisions obviously build off of each other. So when you make a design choice that's not right, it can throw off all the rest of the future decisions for that space. So, what are some indicators that you might need to bring in a designer into your space or a color expert and really kind of get clarity when you're trying to DIY?
I mean, that's a good question because it really depends on, everyone's at different levels. Some people
Mm,
buy my book
absolutely.
and they're just off to the races. They're like, okay, oh my gosh, I have
Mhm.
been like, people think I'm crazy because I see all these, undertones, and
Yes.
now I get it, and and they're off to the races, and then some people are even more confused, and but there are a lot of people that they get so far in their renovation or their decorating project, and they realize, okay, so now I've made a bunch of mistakes, and then they call in the color expert or the decorator, hoping that the paint color can magically fix it. Well, I mean, sometimes it can, but But
Right.
there are a lot of times where, there's no magic here. Like, you now have to start
Mhm.
ripping something out in order
Yeah.
to to get the result that you want. So it's hard to say where the "you are here" button is. I think you have to kind of look at your history of decorating, and if you've never been totally happy with your space and you actually find a decorator or a color expert who you resonate with their advice. I mean, DIY advice, which is what you get inside of an e-design package, for example, that's the
Yeah.
cheapest part of the project. I mean,
Absolutely.
because now you're going to get your colors right. Now you know what color your sofa should be. Or if you're renovating your bathroom, now you know like what color is my
Mhm.
countertop, my tile. What's the most classic and timeless kitchen, classic and timeless bathroom?
Yeah.
That's what I pitch. That's my aesthetic. I mean, not everyone resonates with that. I mean, I'm sure there's lots of
Absolutely.
people that hit my website and think, wow, this girl has zero creativity because all she ever talks about is subway tile. And yes, that's exactly right. And so if that is
Yeah.
not your
Yeah.
thing and you want to put in that exciting, backsplash, then you're probably gonna read a different blog and that's fine. We all have our
Right.
niche. There's
Right.
enough room for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I personally totally resonate with your style,
Yeah.
so I feel the fear of pattern tile, but I think that for a lot of people, a lot of listeners, this is gonna be very, like, freeing in a sense because you don't have to make all those difficult design decisions, whether it's because you don't have an eye for it or you just, like, work a full-time job and you wanna, like, do the projects but not have to be bogged down with all the designs.
One of the biggest foundations of my work really is that the
Mhm.
right color is always achieved through comparing. That is how you get
Mm,
there. I mean,
mhm.
I had someone email me because they're installing a wood look tile, and he sent me 5 different links, and I immediately nixed two of them because they were too cheap. The other
Uh-huh.
three, I immediately stuck them onto, put them all on like a PowerPoint presentation so that now I could compare all three that I had sort of narrowed it down to. And now you can
Yeah,
actually make a decision because you're comparing. I like the one that's a
exactly.
little more yellow. Okay, this one's more pink. This one's more green. This one has some knots in it. Maybe I like that more countrified look better. I mean, now you can make a decision
Yes.
because now you're comparing. So that's really the biggest way to get color right. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's so powerful because I think when you compare things, you really know why things are a yes and why things are a no. Like you have a clear reason, like, yeah, it is too blue or it's too
Yeah.
whatever, or there's not enough
Yeah.
this. And so knowing why you're making these decisions is like, yeah, the foundation of design. You have to be intentional. And I think, yeah, when people try to design and avoid or just kind of pick up things here and there without really doing that comparison work, that's when the space doesn't really turn out as well as it could
Yeah.
have. So something I really like is that you're publishing content in tandem of actually doing all of this work. And what I really, really noticed about your blog that I thought was kind of amazing is that you have all these real world examples of spaces where you're writing a post and you're diagnosing them and breaking down like different design choices for these actual spaces about how to improve them. I think it's so important because it's not like designing a space from scratch. It's the type of design most people are doing where it's redesigning an existing space that, yeah, has all those things to play off of. So, do you have any advice? Obviously, color is not the like magic bullet, but like how to use color not to fix a space, but more to like update and refresh a space that is kind of
Yeah,
older.
I mean,
Yeah.
color's definitely. I mean, I don't wanna say that color is not a magic bullet because it absolutely can be in
Mhm.
many cases, but,
Okay. Yeah.
sort of the context of color not being magic was earlier what I was saying was that when people have gone too far making the wrong choices,
Sure.
right? And now
Sure.
a
Sure.
paint color isn't gonna fix it. So that's kind of what I meant by that.
Sure.
But
Okay.
there's lots of cases where a paint color absolutely can create magic, and I think that when you're refreshing an older space, for example, like a Tuscan, I mean, there's many
Hmm.
people that are still obviously living in a Tuscan interior, and now they want to move to
Hmm.
something fresher. I mean, that's basically all we do all day long is talk about
Yeah.
Here's how to move your entire space to a fresher, lighter, brighter color. So if you have a
Yeah.
Tuscan house, you can't paint your walls like a stark white because that will
Exactly.
that will look completely wrong. So that's when you need to do,
Mhm.
you need a really, really pale green beige that's still going to give you that fresh look because you're going probably from gold beige walls or, all those much more
Right.
dramatic colors that we were doing in the Tuscan trend. And then of course now the gray trend, people are moving from their gray walls,
Absolutely.
their mid-tone gray walls to white as well. So
Mm.
basically my advice on moving colors to fresher would just be to no kidding, look at my curated colors and line up all of the palest grays, the palest beiges. And if you line them up
Yeah.
in your, wherever you're looking for to find the paint color, one of them's gonna look better than the rest of them. Like,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah, that's a
yeah,
good little tip. So what I like about your style is that there is like this sense of timelessness and we're not like chasing trends, but you do really incorporate a lot of like this freshening up and this embracing of trends. Can we just talk about like color trends and kind of how we've moved through that like beige, gray to now white, like how
yeah.
how that has kind of
Yeah,
happened?
I mean, definitely people I'm still giving people what I mean, people are looking for white, so I'm giving them white. It's not
Yeah.
like I'm telling people that, well, no, you have to paint your walls like blue or green or something.
Mhm, mhm.
But what I but my the world of timeless that I'm always teaching is really just to stay away from making every single choice like, like even now with the black and white trend being here,
Yeah.
what people are doing is every single fixture in their bathroom or their kitchen is black, right? All their faucets are black.
Mhm.
So if you have a white bathroom and you have a glass shower and everything
Yeah.
is black, it's really stark. Like it's just it and your eye just
Yeah,
jumps
sure.
around to all these, your black shower fixture and just all that. Black gets harsh and heavy really fast and masculine. So
Right,
my
right.
best advice on all the black fixtures that are out there now that everyone's installing in their house, like everybody's putting in, like all of
Yep.
their hardware is black, right? All
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
faucets, everything. And so you can still incorporate a little bit of black, but just like use it sparingly and then repeat it once. And that's really all you need to do.
That's a good
Yeah.
strategy. So, another thing you talk about is bossy elements, which I love that they're called that, but, like, when it comes to design, can you give us some insight into, like, what would be a bossy element and how to kind of determine these driving things in your
Yeah. I mean,
space?
if you move into a house that has, stacked stone fireplace or a dated brick blotchy fireplace. Like, for example, when my sister
Mhm.
and her husband moved into their current house, the family room had this really bad red, black, and white blotchy brick fireplace. And I said, well, we need to paint this white. And her husband said,
Yeah.
no, that'll look totally 70s. I said, but what do you think it looks
Yeah.
like now? Like, so I mean, we eventually when we redid that room, we did paint it white, but had we not painted it white, it would have completely bossed around the color scheme because it was orange,
Yeah.
and we weren't decorating with
Right,
orange. We
right.
that whole room ended up being like a, navy and pink and turquoise. So orange fireplace had no place there. So that's when, those are the bossy elements really and a lot of people think even with regards to fireplaces is that, well, if I have a brick fireplace, the next upgrade is to put in a stacked stone fireplace. But what a lot of people don't realize is you're still bringing in a bossy color that
Mm,
you have to
mhm.
work around that. I mean, and that might be fine if you put
Sure,
in a gray stacked fireplace because you're decorating with gray, that's all fine and great until like in that trend. But then when you want to update,
sure,
maybe you don't want to decorate with gray anymore, and now you're still stuck with that gray fireplace.
sure.
Chalk paint,
Yeah.
of course, can fix that. But my advice is to not go there in the first place, to try to keep your hard finishes more neutral.
Yeah. So other examples would be like your hardwood floors, maybe if they're skewed more orangey, like you could yeah, you can't really magic bullet paint a color on the wall. You have to like I guess restructure that cue in order to be able to change the whole
I
thing?
would say that I think it would bother me more if I had charcoal hardwood floors over
Mhm.
I mean, unless they're really orange, I guess.
Right,
Sure.
right.
But my director of e-design is looking for a house right now, and she says house after house after house is just filled with gray floors, and you're
Yeah.
decorating with gray forever. I mean, there's nothing
Right,
neutral
right,
about that gray floor. So, and that's
mm,
fine. I mean, it's not like you're
right,
married to like gray on gray on gray with that, but you just have to be aware that you should
sure.
repeat that gray somewhere so that your floors don't look completely wrong. Ignore
Yeah,
them.
sure. So this might be a hard question, but you obviously have a vast experience of design knowledge and color knowledge, and I know that there's stuff that I don't know what I don't know. So is there any piece of this color design puzzle that I'm missing that you kind of want to touch on?
I mean, going back to what I was talking about at the beginning of this conversation, which is to really think about what you want to put in there first. Like, look for that art that might be the starting point, or pillows.
Mhm.
I find actually, I mean, every decorator talks about pillows, throw pillows being something
Yeah.
everybody needs, but I've actually found in my years of helping people create an inspiration starting point that like art is hard for a lot of people in actual fact.
Mm, absolutely.
But a throw pillow, like a trendy throw pillow, is easy to fall in love with, and you're not married to it. However,
Mhm.
it can also be a really good starting point for a color scheme because there's millions of
Right.
rugs out there. I mean, your eyes can just glaze over so quick just looking at rugs after rugs after rugs. And then the other issue is
Yes,
that
yeah.
the carpet companies throw in all their dated and old rugs too. And so you're wading through all
Uh-huh.
these ugly rugs in order to try to find
Yes, oh my gosh, I wondered what that was about, like, are these still in
they're
style? Because it is just
they're just
pages of
hoping to
stuff.
sell them still, right?
Yes,
So
yes,
so my
yeah.
advice would I mean, Etsy is a place where I've found many great pillows because in great designer fabrics, but they'll
Mm,
take like a more expensive designer fabric and maybe just put it on one side of the pillow so you're not paying for
right.
that extra yardage, but you still get that great designer pillow. So my advice would be to if you're really sort of looking for a starting point, you're wanting to decorate your bedroom or your living room. Those two spaces are pillows are a really good
Yeah,
place to start because they're small, they're not expensive, and it's easy to go, hey, I like that pillow, and then build a palette around that. A good
absolutely.
hot tip.
Yeah, that is a really good tip, so not only are we looking for something to fall in love with, like a pillow is like a good such a good place to look because it is, like, small, easy, and I fall in love with pillows all the time, so this is really resonating with me
Oh
because
my gosh, I have
I have
so many
loved many
pillows
a throw
in my
pillow.
house.
So you have so many resources that we could connect people with. What do you feel like in terms of, like, products or posts on your blog would be a good next step for this conversation if listeners wanna get
Oh,
hands-on?
well, probably both my ebooks, How to Choose Paint Colors, it's all in the undertones, and then the other one is
Mhm.
White is Complicated, A Decorator's Guide to Choosing the Right White. So
Mm.
one will teach you about undertones, and then the other one will teach you about how to choose the right white for anything in your home, whether it's cabinets or trim or walls like that. And then
Yeah,
my blog is a huge resource. I mean, I've been writing it for 12 years.
yeah,
There's over,
absolutely.
oh my gosh, I haven't looked lately, but there's probably somewhere in the realm of like 1,700 posts on my blog. You go to the
Yeah, yeah.
sidebar and start clicking on the tags like understanding undertones. Then you can
Mhm.
really start to understand that you're not crazy. There
Yes!
is color underneath color that you just weren't aware of. And now you just need to get them all lined up so that you can see them all. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Well, that's amazing because then there's 2 really strong next steps, like, if you are just, like, a
Yeah.
DIYer at heart, you wanna do it all
Mhm.
yourself, you get the ebooks and you at least have, like, an education, a place to start where you know what you're working with, and then if you are busy or less of a design eye and you kind of want more done with you things, then you can go, like, the e-design
Yeah.
route and kind of get that set up, that's perfect. So, where can everyone connect with you online? Yeah.
So mariakillam.com is my website and my blog, and most of my social media is at Maria Killam, like Instagram.
Perfect. Thank you so much for coming on today and giving us your time and all your amazing, amazing
Thanks for
knowledge.
having me.
Of course. #obsessed. So what I'm obsessed with this week, I can just hear all of you whispering under your breath, please, not another light fixture. It's not. It's something totally different. So this week, I'm obsessed with my brand new baby air compressor. And when I say baby, I just mean that it's little and cute and it runs off batteries and I can lift it around, carry it around the house with one arm. I got an air compressor and a nail gun to go with it, and it was my very first time ever using a pneumatic air gun. So I had been using the Ryobi battery powered one, which honestly has got me through 2.5 years of DIY. So it can kind of pack a punch. I've built all kinds of crazy things with it, but I was doing this oak accent wall in the podcast studio, and oak is a lot harder than pine, so I was struggling to get the nails to go through. Long story short, I bought a compressor and nail gun, and the compressor is so small and cute, which is not usually what you look for in a power tool, but I'm loving this because it can go all around the house. It's not super heavy. Dragging it out is actually not that hard because it runs off batteries. And it was honestly less intimidating to use because for the first time I've ever used an air compressor, all the giant ones, for some reason, were very intimidating compared to this. Anyway, I did a whole tutorial of exactly how to use an air compressor, covering all of the basics in under 5 minutes. I went from super intimidated about air compressors and pneumatic air tools to being confident and having this be my very favorite tool ever in just one day. And I want to help you guys have the same transformation. If you've ever been considering an air tool, the compressor's under $150 and the gun that I got was $80-ish, if that helps. So I will link it all in the show notes and go check it out if you're interested in making this leap with me. Time to talk trends. Okay, the trend we're talking about this week is fluting. So fluting consists of shallow grooves running along a surface. The best picture I can put in your head is a column. Those really classic columns where they're kind of scallopy around, not totally smooth. That's what fluting is. So fluting is back in a big way. You've probably seen this on Instagram if you're tapped into the design community. And the classic texture for fluting is actually concave. So it's dipped in grooves. We're seeing this on the front of furniture, the front of cabinets, even accent walls. But a lot of people are achieving this look in a really unique way, and that is by lining up dowels. So this actually isn't traditional fluting, since fluting is scooped in, if that makes sense, concave. And the dowels kind of give it that bumped out texture, but it still looks really similar. It's very Art Deco. I'm a huge fan. And so if you want to rock this, basically you can get a bunch of dowels, or they actually sell trim that's essentially half of a dowel with a flat back and a curved front. And you line all those up, glue them, or use nail trim if you're doing a wall. And it's a really beautiful texture because for 2021, we're in love with texture, for sure. But I wanted to share a little hack for rocking this trend, and if you paid attention to my guest bedroom makeover, you might have seen the barn doors I made that do not look like barn doors at all. They're very modern and very sleek, because we all know I am not a fan of farmhouse. But what I used for these is something called pole wrap. So it is essentially a lot of little skinny, fluting pieces all put together on this piece of paper so that it can bend, kind of I don't know if you guys have had those weird snakes growing up that were wooden and they had all those notches and they could bend. It's sort of that vibe, if you know what I'm talking about. But if you don't, it's just all these skinny, almost popsicle stick sized pieces of wood all lined up on this paper. And it bends and can wrap around a pole. So essentially what it's used for is if you have a basement, you have a gross metal pole, you can take this wood trim and wrap it in a circle around the pole, and it will give it the look of a column. So it will make it look fluted. But it turns out it's really, really amazing to use for all kinds of things. The fronts of furniture, my barn doors, you could use it on a wall. And you don't have to line up every individual piece. You get a few pieces at once. You can cut it really easily with a miter saw, just all rolled up. And you could wood glue it on. I used nails for my barn door. But pole wrap is the hack to fluting. If you don't want to do a bunch of individual pieces, you're wanting amazing texture. So try it out. Let me know what you think. And you have to send pictures if you test this in your space, because I want to see how it turns out and if it worked for you. Don't forget to connect with Maria on social and get plugged into some of her amazing resources that will help you be a neutral color queen. And if you're not already, you need to get it together and follow me on Instagram. That's where the party happens every day. It's where you can see me do all of my projects and DM me with your questions and your spaces and all of that fun stuff. So hop over to Instagram, type in Never Skip Brunch, and follow me so we can be friends there and talk more than just once a week.
I'm on my way back home.
Thanks for listening. If this is your first time listening in, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you can stay in the loop with the newest episodes. If you're a subscriber and you like the show, be sure to rate, review, or screenshot and share your favorite episode on social.
You're listening to this podcast, so I know you've got a curious mind. Here's a helpful fact you may not know yet. Drivers who switch and save with Progressive save over $900 on average. Pop over to Progressive.com, answer some questions, and you'll get a quick quote with discounts that are easy to come by. In fact, 99% of their auto customers earn at least one discount. Visit Progressive.com and see if you can enjoy a little cash back. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. National average 12-month savings of $946 by new customers surveyed who saved with Progressive between June 2024 and May 2025. Potential savings will vary.